Tesla stock price up $40, and we think more on an earnings beat. So we also cover all the details that were shared in the earnings report today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for joining us again. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. I wanted to first say congratulations to all of you that are owners of Tesla shares. We're very happy that you made some good money, and we'll be making some good money over the next few days. There's a few data points I'd like to cover, obviously, because they're in the analyst report, so those are good things to note. Number one is that Model Y production ramp has started. So this is awesome because, with Model Y rolling in and you're having both 3 and Y selling, this is actually very good news. And I think that it portends really, really good things because, as Elon said, the Y is expected to sell more than everything else combined. So having that ramp now out of Fremont is awesome. So that's the first item. I also like the Model Y ramping now. And that, by the way, thanks for joining us. Please say thank you to our Patreon supporters. We could use your help if you would. Also wanted to note that we appreciate it if you'd take time to like and subscribe if you enjoy the show. So getting back to our show here, really wanted to get into the news, sort of accelerated past my usual commentary. So we think that Model Y is a huge deal. As Elon pointed out, the vehicle is expected to sell more than everything else combined. So that's great news. Number one. Number two, I know you guys sometimes attack me on comments, but I'll remind you that we predicted Model Y would be announced now, and we shared a bunch of reasons why, and it actually occurred. So I at least get a temporary reprieve from some of the naysayers out there. Secondly, other data points that were pointed out is that Tesla pointed out that they would comfortably be able to deliver 500,000 vehicles this year. So I thought that number was very strange, interesting. So why I thought it was strange, interesting is that there's something interesting going on here, which is we think that Model Y means sales will grow in the United States naturally. And we're thinking that on a quarterly basis, that's an extra, call it 10 or 15,000 vehicles sold, in addition to maybe swapping out 3s for Ys, but more Ys selling. What we're thinking basically, though, is that just in the United States, Tesla should be able to do 100,000 extra vehicles this year based on the new line for the Y, less 3s, but more Ys. It just smells like the United States is at about 100,000 vehicles. So if we're getting China to deliver 100,000 to 200,000 vehicles as well, both Y and X, we're thinking that smells like 800,000 vehicles sold this year. So that's the feeling we have about the general numbers. And I think other analysts, as they write their reports, will sort of see that occur. The call is starting now, and there'll be more information there'll be more information coming out that obviously the market will react to, but clearly the early news numbers are good. I also wanted to encourage all of you, particularly if you're wanting to invest to make some money on the stock, try to do some journaling right now because we said a lot of things over the last few weeks. You've heard things or read things from other folks, and you read newspapers. I want to encourage you to try to capture your logic before this happened and then after, and sort of understand what occurred, because when the next earnings announcement comes up, you're going to have to go through the same process again. And it's nice to be able to have, sort of some backward info to work off of to make better calls on how you're going to manage your money, how you're going to manage your instruments, be it options or stocks, et cetera, heading into a period like this. The next thing I wanted to cover is clearly what's driving all of this is that revenue was slightly ahead, but earnings came in, it looks like, as much as 40 cents above what most people were expecting. So that is all terrific. The next thing that comes up here is we have what we call the 3-day ticking time bomb. All of you who've watched this a lot can review the fact that, as we've noted on numerous occasions, the analysts now have to write reports based on what Tesla reported. And the next step is, after those reports come out, there's a 3-day lag as that's reviewed by the big firms, and then they can make their move. So I believe that where we are now is in the sort of ticking time bomb zone. As the large institutions are going to make their moves, the hedge funds who are short are going to have to make the decision about whether they're going to stay in, A, or B, they're going to accept the truth, which is that Tesla is doing very well and that they are in a tough position right now. So as this plays out, I think the numbers are going to be very interesting, because I do believe there are a lot of folks that are short the stock they're going to have to cover now. Now, based on the fact that the Y is here, I was sort of thinking it was going to be here, but now that it's been announced, I do believe that, definitely the 500,000 vehicles that have been discussed are no-brainer. What I'm really thinking about is that with China coming on, and if they're willing to put in 2 shifts there with a Model Y available there, I definitely think this means 600,000 vehicles, but it could be 700,000 to 800,000. And if that is the case, that would be double the number of vehicles sold. So it justifies a fairly high stock price for Tesla going forward. So it's going to be fun to see what happens with the upgrades from different analysts to embrace the new information. One thing that comes up that I found interesting is here, Kramer has mentioned this a few times, and I think it's an interesting one, which is something called UPOD. What UPOD stands for is under promise, over deliver. So the game that Wall Street plays is that you usually discount what you're going to do or think you can do by a certain percentage point, because it's always better to exceed the number rather than have a lower number than expected. So I wanted to review this with you guys because, the 500,000 comfortably that was announced is a sign of sort of a new Elon. And, I just think that it suggests, obviously, a lot of great things. The one fly in the ointment so far, and we haven't heard everything going on yet from the call, is that I didn't see anything in what I read about the Semi. And as we shared with you previously, we think that the Semi is about to come out as well, because the chips were actually already made for it. So we're kind of eager to see how and when that's going to come. And I think that the addition of the Semi to the party obviously will have a nice new bump to Tesla's stock price, which obviously we're all waiting to see that occur. There's some other milestones that we expect to occur here in the near future. They include Tesla doing a refi by using cash from stock price high to get better terms on its debt, likely in Europe, because I think they're at negative interest rates there or something. But the general point is that with a solid stock price, Tesla has all kinds of options to better structure its balance sheet. So we kind of talked a little bit about what was going on with, we talked a little bit about what was going on with the balance sheet and debt. There was an assumption that Tesla possibly could go to zero if they couldn't manage their debt well. And clearly this suggests that that's not going to happen. But the problem is, the problem here that was interesting to me in the Ford analysis of a zero stock price is what if the analysis didn't take the time to assess what if Tesla stock price went significantly up from where it was, and what are the implications of that for its debt? And I think that's actually a big deal because it's, there are all these domino effects of upward positive changes that go with the stock price. And one of them is the fact that you have lower interest rates when you have a higher stock price because he's using convertible debt. So with that lower interest rate, they even make money on the back end. So there are other numbers that we haven't seen yet teased out that I think will be helpful and that the analysts will be looking at. One of them is how are they doing in the relationship with Fiat and GM in terms of how big that check was and how that hit earnings. I also think that it'll be interesting to find out what the number is, and we think it's $1 billion a year based on Colin Russ talking about that. It's $1 billion a year coming in from Fiat Chrysler, but there's an aroma floating around that there are others that are going to be in bad shape next year, namely Daimler, possibly VW, possibly BMW, and they're probably going to have to come out of pocket for $3 or $4 billion to figure this all out. So I think that the number, the earnings number can exceed, the profit number can exceed the revenue number nicely, given some of the pools of how to find out what occurred in terms of how this hit earnings, and then understand better what's going to happen going forward. Because, for example, Mercedes-Benz has said they're going to do 50,000 EVs this year in the EQC. But given how many ICE vehicles they're selling, that 50,000 a year isn't going to get them to where they need to be. And they need a pooling partner. And obviously, that's a huge deal. Hey, Donovan, thank you for the support there on donating to the channel. We have our PayPal info there. Please take time out to support us. We do have some goals equipment-wise to improve the show that we have not done, and would really appreciate your support in that regard. In particular, some camera changes are in order, some lighting, etc., and we could definitely use some support in that space. Other items to note here are that I have to admit that if you watch what's happened between the new chairman and Elon Musk, I think it's an extremely positive working relationship. And I like the new because I think Elon would be tweeting about killing shorts by now, and he's not doing that. So I have to credit that to the fact that there's a new chairman, and the working relationship between the two of them has him, in a calm position as the company does extremely well while the shorts are getting crushed. The next question that comes up is, what do we see happening here? And a number of people I saw predicted that the stock price was going to fall right out the bat and then come back. That is a typical situation for other companies, but Tesla, I want to say, plays around with the numbers in ways that they very much hide what they're doing. So I wanted to suggest then that what we think is going to happen is the stock is going to sort of stabilize where it's at, maybe 20 or 30 bucks less. But what we're really looking forward to is, as I shared with you, the 3-day rule, because right now the shorts have to figure out what those large institutions are going to do. Because if those guys are coming with large amounts of money to buy more Tesla shares, that is definitely going to force the stock price up another 30 to 50 to 100 points. And I think that a lot of the hedge funds now have to do some calculation, because if they don't unwind their position over the next couple of 3 days before the big institutions hit, they could be facing, a $700 to $800 stock price as they try to exit. And if we get into that situation where it's a squeeze, this is where I thought we may not stay there, but I think there's a possibility that we bounce up into that 900 to 1,000 range temporarily and then swing back down into the late sixes, early $700 range. So, you don't get the chance to sit there and watch short squeezes happen and understand them fully very often. We'll see how this goes. Any rate, 627 is what Martin just described. I have to say that while the number now is pretty good, I think what happens in the next 3 days is going to be very, very crazy in terms of, I think, crazy good for the folks with Tesla, but in general, it'll be pretty exciting to watch what occurs. Any rate, our plan was to, let the earnings call pass by. Probably won't do another show today, might, if there's something significant that we think that's popped up that might affect your trading for tomorrow. We're definitely going to do our early morning show as we get to collect a lot more information off the earnings call so that we can present better information well before you'll have to trade it. And so that's kind of our goal. Once again, don't forget, we could use the hookup there on PayPal or on Patreon, preferably PayPal, a little easier to deal with. A $10, thanks for the info, would be greatly appreciated. Any rate, this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Our email is working at teslafaninsight.com if you want to say hello that route, or obviously on Facebook. We also want to say, thanks for joining us once again. Glad you made some money today, and we need to figure out how we're going to make you some more money tomorrow is the plan. Any rate, have a great day. Thanks once again for joining us, and we look forward to your comments after the show. We'll likely post comments that were shared in the middle. Any rate, don't forget to like and subscribe. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Don't forget your 25 leg lifts. Once a week for fried foods, and don't go to bed within 2 hours of eating, preferably 4 hours, and no acid reflux issues. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks once again for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight.